Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. Coming up, in the U.S., two key Republican senators say a briefing by the head of the CIA has only convinced them Saudi Arabia's crown prince directed the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Then a look at the largest medical vessel in the world, the U.S. Navy ship dropping anchor off the coast of Venezuela to treat the influx of migrants fleeing hardship at home. And a breakthrough for both transplants and reproductive medicine. A woman who received the first ever womb transplant from a deceased donor has given birth to a healthy baby girl. I'm Jeannie Godula. U.S. senators came out of a classified CIA briefing this week saying they are certain the Saudi crown prince ordered the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. A handful of leading senators from both parties attended that secure briefing with CIA Director Gina Haspel, and they came out fuming. They are now calling on U.S. President Donald Trump to take a tougher stance against Saudi Arabia. Yuka Roye reports.
We have no smoking gun that the Crown Prince was involved.
There's not a smoking gun, there's a smoking saw. You have to be willfully blind not to come to the...
No evidence or strong evidence. Following a closed-door briefing by CIA Director Gina Haspel, key lawmakers from Donald Trump's own party openly disagreed with the White House narrative downplaying possible links between the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
I have zero question in my mind that the Crown Prince, MBS, ordered the killing, monitored the killing, knew exactly what was happening, planned it in advance.
Khashoggi was killed and his body dismembered at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on the 2nd of October. US intelligence has since obtained and analysed some key evidence, including a recording of conversations that the victim had with people at the consulate just before the killing. According to leaked information, the CIA has concluded that the Crown Prince, known as MBS, was probably behind the murder. Donald Trump, meanwhile, has refused to condemn the Saudi royal for the journalist's death. A presidential statement in late November stressed the importance of the Saudi-US alliance, saying that maybe the Crown Prince had knowledge of the event, or maybe he didn't. The hour-long briefing on Tuesday to a small number of senators came after the absence of Gina Haspel at an earlier meeting raised suspicion. That briefing last week was done by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Pentagon Chief Jim Mattis. The Senate is due to vote in the coming days on a measure that would cut off US support for Saudi military operations in Yemen.
Well, that comes as there was a new twist this week in the Trump-Russia investigation. Special counsel Robert Mueller now says Donald Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, should not be sent to prison for lying to the FBI. Mueller says Flynn gave, quote, substantial assistance to help the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. The Trump administration has repeatedly called that probe a witch hunt. Next now to Bolivia, where close to 1 in 4 children work to provide essential income for their families. Bolivia is one of the only countries in the world where children as young as 12 years old are legally allowed to hold jobs. It's also the poorest country in South America. Catherine Clifford has more.
When the school day is finished, the Menez brothers' working day begins. The four sell sweets on the streets of El Alto.
Hace seis años. 13.
Residents, used to seeing children at work, don't bat an eyelid.
The situation in Bolivia forces children to do this. Their parents don't earn enough money.
The brothers' mother sells brooms for a living, and their father is dead. The money they earn is essential for their survival. Between the four of them, they earn about €250 a month, the equivalent of one adult's salary at minimum wage in the country. Child labour is a pillar of the country's economic model. An estimated 1 in 4 minors have a job, backed by the Children and Adolescents Union. In 2014, they led a fight for the right to legally work. The president caved to their pressure, making Bolivia the first and only country to legalise child labour. But this February, the country's judiciary declared unconstitutional certain provisions in the 2014 law. that previously allowed children as young as 10 years old to work, though it still permits labour from the age of 12. For these teenage reps, it means taking protection away from minors who will continue to work illegally.
The problem with our government is that they think we can have the same model as foreign countries, where this situation could never happen because they have stable economies. But why do we have to go out to work? Because we need to support the household so that everyone can be fed.
Maria Agustina Varias is behind a campaign to make sure working children are still going to school, going from door to door to visit families. In this household, the two eldest children go out to work to allow the youngest to go to school. Miriam is 15. Her long hours as a waitress are exhausting her.
You don't feel good when you have to go out to work every day. It's the same for my mother, every day. Sometimes I just can't take it anymore.
Maria's organisation offers medical and psychological support to keep kids in education. In this classroom, just under half of the pupils go out to work after school. The teacher describes a damaging effect on their progress.
Some often have low grades, and it's because their parents don't control them at home. The kids come and go between work and school. For them, it's just normal.
Some observers say child labour has become a necessary evil to keep food on the table for hundreds of thousands of Bolivian families. Meanwhile, the International Labour Organization describes a vicious circle. The more a child works, the less likely he or she is to get qualifications and to participate in the country's economic development.
We'll now take a look at the largest medical vessel in the world. That's U.S. Navy ship, the USNS Comfort. It's dropped anchor off the coast of Colombia, not far from the border with Venezuela. Its mission, treating the sick of both countries in an area where many Venezuelan migrants are fleeing the economic and healthcare crisis at home. Claire Rush has more.
The United States Navy anchors off the Colombian coast, less than 100 kilometers away from Venezuela. But the USNS Comfort's mission is not naval, it's humanitarian.
I have a bunch of doctors and medicines. I don't have anything else, so we're here to provide medical care.
For 1 week, the medical ship operates out of Colombia's Bay of Rio Hacha. On board, there are 12 operating rooms and over 900 people, civilian volunteers of different nationalities, and American military service members who have come to provide free health care.
I think the migration crisis that Central and South America is facing certainly played into our mission here.
The hospitals of this border region in Colombia are overwhelmed by the massive influx of Venezuelan migrants. Little Santiago is Venezuelan. He's just had an operation to correct a congenital malformation.
This operation was always free in Venezuela, but because of the crisis, hospitals don't function anymore.
Patients selected for operations are transported by helicopter to the medical ship. Consultations are carried out on land in 2 schools in Rio Hacha. Some patients have never seen a doctor. Due to the poor healthcare system in the region, children often die of minor illnesses and malnutrition.
Look, my daughter is covered in bumps. She's still waiting for a dermatologist appointment. Healthcare is terrible here.
Outside, Colombians and Venezuelans wait in the sun to be examined by a specialist from the United States. But many won't get an appointment. Some leftist figures in Latin America, like Bolivian President Evo Morales, have accused Washington of using these operations to plot a coup against Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, accusations the U.S. denies. But for the thousands who benefit from this American mission, the helping hand is welcome.
Next to a first for both transplants and reproductive medicine from Brazil. A mother who received a uterus transplant from a deceased donor has given birth to a healthy baby girl. Doctors in Brazil delivered that baby last year and published their findings this week. Now, it's not the first time a baby has been born from a transplanted uterus, but the ability to use wombs from deceased women is a breakthrough that would make the procedure available to more women unable to access live donors. Alison Sargent has the details.
This baby is the first in the world born from a uterus donated by a deceased woman. The little girl was delivered by C-section a year ago at the University of Sao Paulo Medical School, a milestone in reproductive medicine for the doctor who led the team.
It's a very important step. Till now, only if the woman has a close friend or a relative that can donate the uterus, she can receive an uterus transplantation.
Uterus transplants are a relatively new procedure pioneered in Sweden, where the first ever baby born from a transplanted womb was delivered in 2013. A total of 39 live uterus transplants have taken place worldwide, but only 11 of them have led to successful deliveries. Doctors in the United States, the Czech Republic, and Turkey had all attempted transplants from deceased donors, but none of them resulted in births. The breakthrough in Brazil offers hope to women who have been unable or unwilling to accept a uterus from a living person.
There's always a potential for risk for the one who gave donates the uterus. Now, the risk is small, but if a woman says, I don't want to give any risk to my mother or sister, then this would give another option for them.
The team in Brazil says they're working with 3 other patients and hope to see more successful births in the coming year.
We'll leave you now in the U.S. state of Colorado, where a 9-year-old boy managed to overturn his town's ban on snowball fights. His name is Dane Best, and this week he presented his arguments at a town board meeting and won. Laws nearly a century old had made snowball fights illegal. Now, that was linked to a wider ruling against throwing missiles at people, animals, buildings, or any public property. Well, little Dane convinced his local leaders that the law is outdated, adding that he really wants to throw snowballs at his little brother legally. I think that's something any of us with a brother can relate to. That's all the time we have for this Inside the Americas. We'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.
New technology, the latest innovation and its impact on a digital society.
Tech 24, presented by Julia Seeger and Dhananjay Kadilkar on France 24 and France24.com.